Hello! Welcome back to another LEGO building video. We're here with part 3 of our United Forces Battleship. In this part, we'll actually mostly be working on the hull again, because we're going to paint it because I got sick of looking at red all the time, and then we'll start a little bit on the deck section. So I'm trying, if you remember from last time, I was talking about the anchor that's right here. Just trying to design that real quick and get some of the cool little details represented as best as I can. It's basically what I come up with. And then we're just angle this in and get all of that going. Fill in all these gaps right here. And add in all the details with the dragon head up front and all of that. So and it will look, I think it looks a lot better once we paint it, because you get all of these, like all of the details that we've been adding this entire time start to come through a lot more. So painting it helps a lot, or will help a lot. So I'm excited for everybody to see that. Yeah, I'm still struggling to come up with things to say during these parts, because really, that's about all there is to it. I'm just filling in the details, adding some accents, and really right now we're just doing the transition right here and covering up all of this so it doesn't look as jarring, and trying to fit in, just trying to keep in mind the colors that we're going to end up using and make sure that the pieces that I'm putting here let me do what I want to do in the end. So it's just, a little trial and error, but we're pretty much there. Just going to fill in the little gaps, at least in that part, and then we'll copy it over. That's all good. So I'm definitely excited to move on from the hull and work on the deck, because I think the deck is probably my favorite part of this build, just because there's more going on in a lot of ways, because it's very dense and there's a lot going on there, and it's also probably the hardest part to get reference pictures for, just because just the scenes that we see this in, as I've said before in the series, don't show us a lot because they're very fast paced and all of that. So just like some of the inner workings of the deck are a bit lacking in reference pictures, but I think it ends up looking great. We're just copying that over to the other side, getting that all situated, at least on the outside, and then we'll work on the interior section of this, and that will be, I'm pretty sure that's just about where we leave it at the hull. Is once we finish this interior section, we'll be pretty good. Oh, and we have to add this raised section to the back as well, but we'll do that. So there's just this little, as I'm building right now, there's a little raised section to the build right here, and it uses some nice detailing and some red to kind of break up all the other colors that are used in the model. So just adding that in, I think just that little thing adds a lot to the final look, surprisingly. So we're just doing the transition from the dragon head to that whole section, which thankfully those curved pieces exist because they worked really nice for it. And something that's difficult when you're using tiles like this, especially when something sloped up, like exactly what we're doing here, it can be a little difficult sometimes to make the transition effectively. And so basically what I did was use some hinge plates to do that. And there's another part of the build that's way later on that specifically does that thing again, and I'm pretty sure I never actually did the hinge plates for it, which doesn't look that bad, but the hinge plates definitely help with the transition making it all look smooth just because all of this will be different colors. So yeah, and we're just gonna cover up the little turret thing right here with part of the, it's not really a fence, I guess the railing for the hole, and it will shine through the deck, which isn't the most accurate thing, but you know, there's only so much you can do. It's really fine. We're just adding the rest of the railing there, and that one isn't covered up, just it goes right up to it, but just the ones on these sides are. Yeah, and with the sloping section up here at the front, we also have to make sure that there's a decent transition up to that section. So I'm just adding that in and making sure that it's all it's all like covered and everything, and there's not a super jarring transition taking place, at least where I can avoid it. So yeah, really, like, that's what it is. Oh. Yeah, I definitely like recording commentary for shorter videos more, because there's a whole lot more going, well, not shorter videos, smaller builds, because there tends to be like much more going on all the time, just because they tend to be much more dense builds. Where this, it is very detailed and it is pretty dense, but also there's just a lot of it is repeated detail since it is so big. So I definitely think it's a bit more fun to record for the smaller builds. Fortunately, I also like to do really big builds a lot. I have a really big one in the, I guess it's in the planning stages really, that I won't even start on for like a month or two, probably a couple months for sure. But yeah, so not looking forward to that one for a number of reasons, which will become apparent when you see what it is. But yeah, also I'm super excited to do it, so I really can't complain that much. Yeah, so back here we're kind of just doing the same thing that we did in the back for this section, but also we're not connecting it along the sides like we did in the back. We're just going to connect it at the base right there, and then the sides will just go in and transition like we're doing on the on the other side of this little section. So that's where it differs a little. I like this, as far as like how easy it was to build, I like this one a lot better, or this side, because you don't have to worry about all that connecting everything together stuff like we did in the back, and it's really nice to not have to worry about that sort of stuff sometimes and just be able to build. And I think everything gets covered up pretty effectively, so just trying to find the right height right now to get it to line up with the railings we have on the exterior side, and also doesn't get in the way of the transitions we've been doing. So it's just, you know, trial and error like always. Just gotta keep trying different things until you find the one that works. Yeah, and I'm just trying to look at what I did in the back and see how I can carry that over here and make sure that it's all consistent. And I'm just gonna move those back a little so we can keep with the smoothness of, since on this interior side for most of it I'm not actually angling the build, I'm just gonna kind of bring it in a little bit as we go, especially with these slope pieces. So I want to make sure that it's smooth as possible while we're doing that. So, yeah, because the only curved sections are going to be up where the railing is, which we've already done. I think we extend it down a little bit, but not that much. Not down to there. Yeah, and just like the back and the sides, we're going to just cover up the holes right there as best as we can. Just to make sure that I don't know what I was trying to say. It's already lost. Who knows? But yeah, just right here we're just making the transition more smooth. I decided I want it to change in that little section instead of where it was. And we're moving this forward a little bit, yeah, just by one brick. And that helps a lot because then we don't have to do like this little section right here isn't working in odd numbers, it's working in even numbers, which is always so much nicer with Lego bricks because they don't make a lot of odd numbered pieces or like with an odd number of studs. So it can be, it's not really difficult, it just tends to be more flimsy when you're using an odd number in a confined space like this, just because you have to use like 1x1s and everything to accomplish your 5x5 area. Yeah. So it just tends to be a little flimsy. It really doesn't matter when I'm building digitally like this, but I do plan to make a lot of these, or make physical versions of pretty much everything at some point. Actually, that's something I can talk about. So, plans regarding that. Well, essentially, I do plan to sell instructions in the future, and I also do plan to, as far as minifigures go, like, I am making the custom designs right now, and I'm planning to do custom pieces, so at some point I definitely want to be selling both of those as well. So, I do give out the LDD file for all of these things that we're building, but since they aren't designed with a physical build in mind, there's a lot of things like with the Geist that we did a little while ago, like the wings connection is super flimsy, and I'm not sure how it would stand up if you were to build a physical version, and some of the pieces don't exist with the colors I used in the physical Lego world. So it does require a bit of, tweaking to accomplish and get a physical build going right. So what I plan to do is I have been not in the position to really order a ton of Lego bricks recently, but as soon as I am going to start building everything one by one and tweaking them and everything till I have a physical version that I'm happy with, that I think is stable enough and that isn't super expensive to buy or in order the pieces and everything. And once I have that, I can make instructions for it, and then I'll be selling those. I'm not quite sure what the method will be for selling those, but they will be made available at some point. So if you want to make all the adjustments yourself, you are more than welcome to right now with the LDD files that I've been providing. But if you don't want to do that, I will be doing it at some point. So it will happen either way. Yeah. So what we've been doing on the screen, to get back to that for a second, is doing the detailing. It will be gold at some point. We're doing just a lot of detailing on the side with how this dragon statue continues into the whole section. So, we can't really see it right now, but I use some teeth pieces and like claw pieces to kind of accomplish the swoops in the reference material, and then I use that like railing detailing piece again, and just kind of did it opposite, so it makes sense if you could see it, but you can't, so that probably doesn't make any sense at all. But yeah, and then I used a similar technique to what we used with the dragon head with that, I guess, claw piece that just clips in right there, and just use the 1x1 with a little bar coming out the top to attach that. And now we're just going to mirror it and put it on the other side. And I was very much dreading doing this part because I really wasn't sure how to accomplish this sort of thing in Lego bricks, just because it is a very organic shape. So I'm really happy with how it turned out with that in mind. And I just love it when things work out that way. It's really nice. So yeah, and so like builds like this, getting back to what we were just talking about, sorry to keep going back and forth, but there's actually some interesting stuff happening on the screen right now. But anyway, like this specific build is, I think it ends up being like 6,000 something pieces. I can't see what we're at right now. It's at the bottom, so you can probably see it. It's like well over 6,000. And in order to buy all of those pieces would be quite a bit of money. Like even if Lego were to sell this and manufacture the pieces themselves, it would probably end up costing like at least $700. Like probably like $650 to $700, depending on what, just how everything works with their manufacturing for the specific set. You never know for sure what they're going to price things at. But yeah, so that's a lot of money. And then that's if they manufactured it themselves. So to build it, buying pieces through like the secondary market tends to be a bit more expensive, just because a lot of pieces are like well below the 10 cents per part ratio that Lego usually does, but a lot of pieces are well above it. So usually it kind of balances out to quite a bit more than you'd be paying for if Lego were to manufacture it. So, and in order to do all of the tweaking that I would need to do in order to make sure the physical version was stable and everything, it would require a lot of extra parts, and just it's a lot of money. So that will be happening at some point, because I want to build these digitally or physically at some point anyway, and it's, doesn't hurt anything since I'm going to be doing it anyway, but it will take a minute. I'll probably end up doing a lot of the smaller builds first, but it will happen eventually. So yeah, we are just starting. We've painted the hole, and we got the reds and the sand greens and the golds and all of that in there, just to give us a little bit of break from the red. And now I'm pretty sure I didn't record it just because it seemed a little boring, but I added a bit of a Technic structure in there to give it some stability, just trying to keep a physical version in mind at some point. I'm not quite sure how well it will stand up or hold up to gravity and physics in a final version, but it never hurts to keep it in mind. And then we are just adding the deck on top of it. So we are doing it with the studs on the side, mostly because I wanted to replicate the wood paneling, like the boards of wood that are used to make the deck in the in the reference model. So this seemed like by far the easiest way to do that, and still retaining that the lines that would represent the wood. And then we're just using those same, I guess, inverted arch, but like not inverted pieces, to make the little holes where the earthbender turrets are. And that's pretty close. There's a tiny bit of gap around the entire exterior or perimeter of the these deck pieces, but it's small enough that you really wouldn't notice it in a build this big. So, yeah, and especially once like we get it rendered and everything, all the shadows are there and everything, you won't notice it at all. And I'm glad it all fit together as well as it did. So yeah, we're just kind of building that all up and getting it all set up before we start adding all the details to the deck section. So yeah, that about covers it for this video. Next time we'll be adding more details after we finish that up. So I hope you enjoyed, and feel free to like and subscribe, and have a good one.